The Bitcoin Olympics is here, happening only once every 4 years. And if you don't know what I'm talking about the Bitcoin halving. Now, the Bitcoin halving pretty much always causes every single bull to come out once again and announce the next pump of Bitcoin, announce the next all-time high, and all of the above. However, today I want to give you a reality check. I want to talk about what's actually going to happen in Bitcoin price movements based on previous halvings that we've seen, as well as sort of what I expect the market to do on the actual date of the halving, as I think a lot of people are confused. And I want to make it clear so that you have a better plan when trading Bitcoin as we approach the halving. Now, before I get into the video, make sure to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. Also, make sure to join my new Discord group down in the description down below. If you trade stocks, Forex, cryptocurrency, anything, we trade it all, so make sure to join that group. However, let's get right into the video, first talking about when the halving is actually occurring and what's going to happen on the specific date and time of the halving. So to give a very dumbed down version of what the halving is, all the halving is it's just miners get paid half as much in order to mine Bitcoin. So this will not affect anyone unless you are actually mining Bitcoin. I think that's a very key thing for a lot of traders. They're worried that something's going to happen to their Bitcoin. Absolutely nothing's going to happen to your Bitcoin unless you're a miner. And so that's why I really want to address the question of, well, what's going to happen once this timer reaches zero? I think a lot of people are confused because many people, they've only seen the Bitcoin hard fork where people were trying to buy Bitcoin in order to get Bitcoin Cash. And then once the hard fork actually happened, Bitcoin just crashed because no one wanted to hold it anymore. I think it's very important to understand what happens after these major events so that you're prepared, right? This could literally be a death timer. You don't know if by the time this gets to zero, Bitcoin is going to crash down to zero or if it's going to shoot up to $30,000. It's very important to know that. And so now let me talk about what I think is going to happen once this timer actually reaches 000. So if we take a look at the previous halvings, as I mentioned before, this has happened 3 times already, every 4 years since Bitcoin was created. And the important thing that I want you to look at here is what happened immediately after the halving. So the halving is the blue line, and then we see these little red squares here. And what these red squares represent is a correction after the halving. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, during the halvings, every single bull and their best friend comes out and starts saying, I want to buy Bitcoin. Everyone should start buying Bitcoin. And that's why Bitcoin starts going up again. However, a lot of the time, this causes a move that is not necessarily the correct move for Bitcoin. Maybe it goes up a little bit too fast or things get a little bit too overhyped. So that's why we see a correction after the halving a lot of the time on Bitcoin, or at least after every single previous halving, we've seen a correction. So you might be wondering, how large will this correction actually be? So if we look at the first Bitcoin halving, there was only a 5% correction. However, at that time, we were at around $11 to $12 for Bitcoin. So that was quite a bit lower. However, I think the best one that we can compare this to is the previous Bitcoin halving, as there was already more traders in the market, already more people watching Bitcoin. So I think this is the most comparable one to the current move that we are currently seeing. So this is when Bitcoin went back up to around $600 to $700 after its pump all the way up to $1,000. And the correction that we saw after the halving was around 25%. So I think all traders need to be aware of this because although Bitcoin's moving up very quickly right now, and this happens pretty much every time, right before the halving, Bitcoin goes up really quickly. However, after the halving, there can be a little bit of correction. And if you do want another opportunity to maybe purchase more Bitcoin at a lower price or sell Bitcoin at a higher price, you can definitely sell it now and then buy it back maybe a week or two after the halving actually happens. And so how much can we expect it to move down? I think it's perfectly plausible, as I said before, for it to move down around 25% as we saw back in 2016. And this means that it could possibly go back down to $6,800 to $6,900. And I would say that for most people, that is a very, very considerable accumulation zone and quite a good entry long term if you want to hold Bitcoin after this halving. So now I want to talk about one of my favorite Bitcoin indicators. And the reason why this is my favorite indicator and not something like MACD or RSI or stock RSI is because Bitcoin doesn't care about technical analysis or fundamental analysis. Bitcoin is not yet an established asset, and that means that there is no specific reason for its current moves aside from simply supply and demand and speculative trading. So my absolute favorite indicator for Bitcoin is looking at Google search trends. Because if we look at Google trends, we are able to see if there's a spike in interest in Bitcoin. And obviously, if there is likely also a spike of interest for buyers coming into Bitcoin. If we look at this indicator, my favorite indicator, once again, Google Trends, and we look at June of 2019, where Bitcoin saw a recent spike in interest, and we go to the Bitcoin charts, we can see that that is specifically where Bitcoin went from around $3,000 to $4,000 all the way back up to almost to $14,000. So this is a very valuable indicator because you are able to see if people are coming back into the market and getting excited about Bitcoin. This is key in supply and demand. If more people are buying, then the price is going to move up. So if we take a look at what Bitcoin's doing right now, I think it's definitely not nothing. I think there is some interest in Bitcoin as we see. However, there is no substantial spike. So I think this furthers my point that there will be a good, considerable correction after the Bitcoin halving actually occurs because people haven't come into the market yet. There isn't an influx of media attention yet. And that's why I think Bitcoin has a good chance of moving down right after this halving occurs. However, once again, long term, I don't know what's going to happen. If the recession gets really bad and if the economies of all across the world start collapsing, then maybe Bitcoin is going to see a spike in interest. But until this chart starts getting some really good numbers, until we see another day that's like Bitcoin at around 26, as we see right here on the chart in June of 2019, until we get back to this number, I am not super excited about another next Bitcoin all-time high because this is what Bitcoin needs in order to achieve that. Finally, I just wanted to take a look at Bitcoin's actual price and just talk about some major levels that I personally am looking at. And in my opinion, one of the most important levels to look at here is this $10,000 zone. I know it's super exciting that Bitcoin's getting back to $10,000, but if we look historically, this is a zone that Bitcoin has rejected multiple times now. We can see a test on Bitcoin of this zone right here and right here. So we've already tested it 2 times, not even accounting for this major wedge that we saw previously. So although it's super exciting that Bitcoin's at $10,000 ahead of the halving, etc., if we see another rejection here, this could definitely be another major resistance, and this could be the point from which we move down and then eventually make that next long-term all-time high move. So although it's super exciting that the halving's coming up, be super careful of this major resistance level. And if we do rally again, if we rally above this resistance level at around $10,000 to $10,500, then I do think we could see a move up to $14,000, but just try to be very, very careful. I would not be blindly buying in right now if you're not taking a look at the price and really making sure that you want to enter in at a long-term standpoint. Because I think that's the most important thing to think about right now. When should I enter in long-term? Short-term, this can be extremely unpredictable. Obviously, I can't say exactly where it's going to move. But if you do wait until after the halving and wait maybe a week or a month and then enter in at $6,900, that is an amazing long-term entry, and that is definitely what I think your plan should be. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and see you in the next one.